So the immune system of the human body consists of lymphoid organs, tissues of lymphoid system, cells of the lymphoid system, and antibodies. Regarding antibodies, we have already studied in detail, so I won't be covering it again. Cells we have already covered, B cells and T cells in detail, so we'll not be covering it again. So just remember, lymphoid organs are the places where maturation and proliferation occur of these lymphocytes, and they are primary and secondary. Primary, where the first maturation and then specific antigen receptors develop on their surface, and then they migrate from there through blood or lymph to the secondary lymphoid organ. So the primary lymphoid organs are only two: bone marrow and thymus. All lymphocytes generally start, and even the blood cells, their production starts in bone marrow, and then those lymphocytes which continue to remain in bone marrow will mature in bone marrow and are called as B cells, and they are the part of antibody immune response. And those which migrate to thymus and mature in thymus are called as T cells, and they will become a part of cell mediated immunity. The secondary, now let's understand in detail, some detail regarding, because NCERT also gives you one line each for each type of the secondary lymphoid organ. So secondary lymphoid organs are those organs where proliferation, differentiation, one's making contact with antigen, all those things takes place. So immune response develops, antibody production develops in the secondary lymphoid organ. So there are various secondary lymphoid organs. Let's understand the first one, which is called as the lymph node. So lymph nodes are small solid structures which are present throughout the lymphatic system in human body. They appear to be like nodes or nodules, like the way we talk about in plant system, root nodules are there. So these swollen portions are called as nodules or nodes, and they are composed of lymphoid tissue, and their main function is to act like filters for the lymph. So when they act like a filter, only lymph will pass away, and this is the way they will trap the microorganism. So they prevent the foreign particles from entering into the bloodstream. Lymph nodes also produce lymphocytes and also produce the plasma cells, because once these cells make a contact with the antigen in the lymph nodes, they are going to start proliferation and they start producing antibodies. So plasma cell formation takes place in the lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are basically the filter of lymph, and they do not allow the escape of the foreign material into the bloodstream from lymph. If you remember, the fluid from lymph goes into blood. Now the next thing is spleen. Spleen is the largest lymphoid tissue, so this can come as an MCQ also. It is a bean-shaped organ, and it is the largest single mass of lymphoid tissue in the human body. But remember that in the fetus, spleen produce all type of bloods. But when it comes to adult individual, spleen only produces lymphocytes. And remember, spleen also has macrophages. I have discussed in the previous classes. And those macrophages are phagocytic in nature. That's why even in the malaria class I have explained to you that spleen undergoes enlargement, hypertrophy also. That happens because a large number of RBCs are killed or are degraded there, because when malaria happens, RBCs burst, so their dead bodies are supposed to be cleared off in the spleen. So spleen undergoes enlargement whenever malaria happens. So the next one is the tonsils. Tonsils are usually 6. We have learned about them in the 11th class regarding, if you remember, Waldier's ring, I have discussed in the 11th class. So pharyngeal tonsil, lingual tonsil, nasal tonsil, tubal tonsils. So there are 6 in number. Some are in pair, some are single. So these 6 tonsils form a ring around the nasal, or you can say the nasopharynx, oropharynx area, so that no infection happen. So the tonsils are 6 in number, and they also act like filter to prevent the body from bacteria, because ingestion and through inhalation we may happen to have a bacteria entering our body. So these act like a filter. Tonsils won't allow these bacteria to enter into the human body. And remember, tonsils are the place where WBCs are also formed. Now the next one is the Pierce patches. Pierce patches are clusters of lymph nodules, or you can say they are smaller than the nodes, and they are present in the small intestine, especially in the ileum and jejunum part, and they produce lymphocytes. So you know lymphocytes are basically for defense system. And the last one is the MALT or MALT. So MALT stands for mucosal associated lymphoid tissue. The MALT are significant collection of lymphoid tissue which are seen in the mucosa of respiratory tract, mucosa layer of alimentary canal, mucosa layer of urinogenital tract, and it constitutes 50% of the lymphoid tissue of the human body. So if anybody asks which of the tissues form 50% of all the lymphoid tissue, so the answer should be MALT. And they do not serve as filters of the lymph. The large aggregations extend into submucosa, and remember that they are the centers of production of lymphocytes. Apart from B cells and T cells, even phagocytic cells, which are the macrophages, as well as dendritic cells, are also present in the MALT. So MALT's function is basically to synthesize the lymphocytes and to even carry the macrophages, or you can say phagocytic cells, along with the dendritic cells, which trap the microbe but do not phagocytosis the microbe. I have discussed about that before regarding dendritic cells. So MALT constitutes the maximum part, or you can say almost 50% of the 50% of the lymphoid tissue in the human's body. Now the next topic to start is the AIDS.